listen responsibly.
You are listening to Conscious Fever, hosted by Carl Price.
Hey, good evening. Welcome to Conscious Fever here on ICE Entertainment Television and Conscious Fever Radio. I am Carl Price, your host. We are talking about the 2022 judicial election results. That may bore some of you, but it's actually very exciting. I've asked a guest to come on tonight. She's been here before. She's a contributor. They call her, the public calls her because they just re-elected her as judge of the Jefferson Family Court, Division 7. She also serves as the chief judge in Jefferson Circuit Court, the family division here in Louisville, Kentucky. We're going to talk about the election results, the judicial election results. I know she's not going to want to make too many comments about this side of the election results, which is the gender side. It just almost seems now that a man just simply cannot win an election. We'll talk about that, at least here in Jefferson County in Louisville. So, but we'll talk about that for those who want to talk about it. And if you do want to talk about it, remember we host Comment Central here on Conscious Fever, here on ICE Entertainment Television and Conscious Fever Radio, where we post your comments. We post your comments live. So I hope everybody's having a wonderful evening. It is still sort of warm here. We know it's wet down in Florida. And so, of course, my prayers to all my friends in Florida. I reached out to a few people that I know in South Florida, and they seem to be doing okay. Thank God. But in any case, I miss y'all. I'm glad you're watching. I'm glad you're listening. This is Conscious Fever here on ICE Entertainment Television, Conscious Fever Radio. Judge Denise Brown is going to join me. We're just going to talk about some of these election results. We don't have numbers for you, but we're going to show you the candidates as they appeared on the ballot. And I'll give you an opportunity to chime in with us. So, again, welcome and thanks for watching and listening tonight here on Conscious Fever Radio, ICE Entertainment Television. Anyway, I have a tendency of just touching stuff around here. So in any case, on the other side of this quick commercial, this is my show, so I can advertise my stuff. I want to bring Judge Denise Brown in, and we're going to talk about these election results. You will be surprised if you all were surprised on some of these races as I was. it's some interesting stuff to talk about. Number one. And number two, the very interesting thing is that not everybody I voted for won. Believe that. And we're not going to make well, not too many comments on the national elections, but you all know that that is still hanging in the wings, I guess you can say. They're just leaves waiting to blow off. Somebody's going to blow off because they're going to lose. Very interesting in Nevada, very interesting in Arizona, and of course, extremely interested in the state of Georgia. And I don't, but there's 1 and I think it was 1.8 million people, believe it or not, voted for Herschel Walker. Now, I'm serious. You can't make this up. 1.8 million people voted to send that man to Washington. I don't know where our democracy is gone. But in any case, right after this, I'm going to be joined by Judge Denise Brown here on Conscious Fever. You're listening to me on Conscious Fever Radio, Ice Entertainment Television. I'll be right back.
Take my hand, we'll make it somehow. We can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out. Die with my own doubts. Be free with me.
Sounds like we have at least 3 injuries, one bleeding from the head. Our caller also stated that one party is unresponsive with severe injuries. They believe it may be fatal.
I don't want them, no, get them all off me. Say that for L, she a cause, you see. 4 cars deep, we'll come through on the lane 9. Chicken spot, wings and fries, we call that a day night. Lights on, so out, I don't have no stage fright. Knew that I was built for this forever, ever.
You are listening to Conscious Fever, hosted by Carl Price.
We ride dance, 10 times 10, all my friends. This for
I have wept and I have fallen. Don't you worry about me.
All right, welcome back to Conscious Fever here on Ice Entertainment Television, Conscious Fever Radio. As always, there are some system glitches here tonight. But again, we're talking about the 2022 judicial election results. Surprising. And I know Judge Denise Brown and I are going to talk about that. So I want y'all to not laugh and, if you can, just a little, small applause. But as we welcome Judge Denise Brown in. Judge Denise Brown. Hey, welcome, Judge Brown. Sounds like they like you. For what that's worth. Okay, enough, y'all. Enough, y'all. Just enough. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Price.
Hi, Judge Brown. Thanks for joining me tonight here on Ice Entertainment Television and Conscious Fever Radio, here on the Conscious Fever Show. The 2022 judicial elections. Some say it was a roller coaster. I'm sure for the candidates, it was very much a roller coaster, and an interesting ride for some. Some we've lost through retirement and promotion, and some we lost because they lost the election. So I want your insight on these election results tonight, if you're willing to help us out in that area. But let me start by asking you just your initial thought of the election results and your initial takeaway.
Well, I think that what we're seeing is just like we saw with family court about 8 years ago, was a more than 50% of the term either retiring or deciding not to run again. and you're seeing the same thing at the circuit level right now. And so there's going to be a learning period uh, for the very first part of next year. But I'm sure all candidates or judges elect will be well prepared to address any issues that come up in their courts. But attorneys are going to have to get used to having some different people um, in those seats, and that's not a bad thing. It just happens.
Yeah, and we don't like change in the law. I can tell you, and you used to be a trial lawyer before you became judge. So we don't like change. We don't like when cases like Baston versus Kentucky, or um, there's a lot of cases that change the way we do things in the courtroom, and we don't really like that as lawyers, especially as litigators. So now we have to get used to this particular change because there's a lot of new faces coming to
Mhm.
Jefferson Circuit Court, particularly the Circuit Court Division. I guess that's fair to say because you're in the Family Division and the District Court Division. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts on these newcomers?
Well, I think it's going to present an opportunity for both district and circuit courts to kind of take a little bit more advantage of remote and hybrid appearances, increasing access to the court. I think it's going to be an opportunity for both terms to maybe kind of reshape some of the things that are already happening and building on them and making them better. I mean, many of these candidates ran on reforms they wanted to make, whether it was uh, creating specialty courts to handle specific issues within the community, or committing to have a more transparency in any of the processes that they use, especially in regard to warrants and bail reform. So I think it's going to be very interesting.
I mean, do you really believe? I mean, it's easy to say that on the campaign trail. It's a whole different story when it comes to execution and implementation because it's not a one man or one woman show, right?
Right. Right. I mean, but there are 13 circuit judges and 17 district. So I feel like there's and probably at least I think there might have been a total of 9 at district court that were contested, and then maybe 6 races contested at the circuit level. I mean, I think all of that is enough to build some momentum for change.
So half of the district court bench was pretty much was available. Half of the seats on district court is pretty much available. There are a total of 17 district court judges, and we were looking at uh,
I think maybe we had 4 vacancies and maybe or 4 or 5 vacancies, and then the others were just contested incumbents that were contested.
okay, incumbents that were contesting. So yeah, I mean, before 5 vacancies, that's a lot for district court. That's a lot for any court.
Yeah, well, you had 3 people leave to Chief Judge Karam opted to run for another seat, and then Judge Hayner was appointed in circuit court, and so that meant that his seat was going to be open, and I believe one of the district court judges ran for that seat. So then that opened. No, she ran for another circuit court seat that was up in. I think it was Judge McKay Chavan's seat. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Well, let's talk about some of these races and how these races, play themselves out. I am going to, yeah, get the cameraman to bring me up a little bit. So, in any case, let's talk about this. This is Judge Angela Bissick. Judge Bissick was challenged by, well, actually, this was an open seat,
It was an open seat.
right? And this is because of the retirement of Judge Liz Abramson of the Kentucky
Just
Supreme Court.
Justice Hughes.
Yes, Justice Hughes. I'm sorry. Um, You know, an interesting history on Justice Hughes, but she actually filled the vacancy that was made by Judge McAnulty,
Hmm.
right? When he
Yeah.
passed away, the first African American of any gender to sit on the Kentucky Supreme Court, not just as a guest, but as a justice. And she filled that vacancy, and now she's retiring. And so, this race, what did you think about this race? I mean, you know, I can tell you for a lot of people, this was a no brainer that Judge Bissick was probably the secretariat type of favorite. What do you think?
Well, I noticed that she did get probably more votes than anybody else on the ballot that day. I did notice that, especially of all the judges, she got the largest share, and I'm sure that makes her happy and feel very supported and by the community.
Right. And you know, truth be told, you know, I worked with Angela before she became a judge as a prosecutor, and I can tell you that there are very, very few people in this world that is wonderful, in my opinion, to work with and to appear in their court, other than Judge Bissick. And I think she was extremely well liked. She ran a campaign extremely uh, well, exquisite. Um, and her watch party was pretty good too.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, she had a lot of sweets there, and I'm not a big sweet eater, but I did eat one brownie. But the number of people I saw there that I hadn't seen in a while, but you know, but I mean, your thoughts on this? Do you think that there was anybody that uh, really could have been a formidable challenge to Judge Bissick at this time, seeking that seat in the Kentucky Supreme Court?
Well, I think anytime you have someone contending for the seat, you don't take anything for granted, and you run it as if you know, uh, you don't ever minimize your the other person who's second on the list who decided to throw their hat in the ring, because it takes a lot of confidence and courage to do that. So um, I try to tell people, don't look at, well, if it had been so and so running, maybe it would have been a different result, because every race is its own race. You can never really make any predictions. You can make some generalizations, and you hope they come through or come true on your race. But typically, every race is unique, and it could have been one or the other candidate with someone else, and we still might not get the same result. So
Yeah. Well, I've seen a lot of judicial and uh, other type of campaigns, and I would tell you that I thought her campaign was run very, very well, very, very well, and so kudos to her. But on the Kentucky, in at the Kentucky Court of Appeals, Judge, there were two open seats, right?
yes,
And both of those divisions were from Louisville's judicial district, right?
yes, yes,
Um, Many of you may or may not know, but Chief Judge Denise Clayton is retiring. Am I correct? She is
yes.
retiring from the bench after this year, a major loss for the Kentucky judiciary. Is she the first African American female elected to the Kentucky Court of Appeals? Because I think,
Yes.
yeah, because I think who's the judge that's there now with her?
Good, Judge Goodwine
Yeah, Goodwine. I think Goodwine came after her,
from Lex
but
from
y-
Fayette.
yes, from Fayette County. So Judge Denise Clayton was retiring, and so that opened up her seat. And then my former boss, former county attorney, former B district
Judge
commissioner.
May.
Yeah, was he B or A?
Yes,
Yeah, yeah,
yes.
B
It was
district commissioner um, under the old system when the county judge executive office really meant something. I know you don't want to comment on that, but I saw people running for that office, and it's interesting. You probably get a little pennies, but it's not like it was when Mitch McConnell had that office. But Judge Irv Mays of the Court of Appeals is leaving, and that opened up his seat. And so it left some vacancies, Judge Brown. So I'm gonna give you an opportunity. Let's talk about some of those seats, and for instance, this one, uh, District 4, Division 1, Judge Audra Eckerly. She served a great deal of time on the in the Jefferson Circuit Court. She spent some time as a Jefferson District Court judge, and now she's going to the Court of Appeals. But interesting, um, uh, was her challenger. Okay, was her challenger, and her challenger, uh, interesting enough, was um, a criminal defense attorney, a criminal appellate defense attorney, Tricia Lister. What were your thoughts on this race?
Well, I think you had two candidates with different types of experience that suited both of them for that role. And I think while I was out on the campaign trail, I did see them both and had an opportunity to speak with them about why they felt they were the one that the people should select. But was really very impressed with both of their credentials.
Yeah. I had an opportunity. I had never met Tricia Lister before. I didn't know that much about her background, but she's an attorney in Rob Eggert's office, and everybody knows around here knows Rob Eggers. He defends. He's a great criminal defense attorney, one of the best in the state of Kentucky, probably one of the best in this region. And she has worked with him as a trial attorney for a great deal of time, and has argued some of the cases that have gone up on appeal from his
Mhm.
office and from other places. Really got an opportunity to meet her very well. But I have to say this about Judge Audra Eckerly. One, I'm crazy about her mother. Her mother is just like my best friend when we used to work together. But one thing I would say about Audra Eckerly, I would say every time I logged onto Instagram, I just saw her visiting somebody or actually campaigning somewhere. And I don't know how she found the time. I have no idea how she found the time, but I was impressed with that. I would just tell you, I was impressed with that because I saw every time you turn around, she was at some event, shaking hands and kissing babies, and that helps when you're campaigning.
Yeah, being out in the community, yes, it does help.
Yeah.
One of the other things I noticed too about the upper level races is that each of them had a person, each position had a challenger who basically had not served as a judge before, and that
Oh,
was
now
the
that's
case.
interesting.
So we have, Miss Lister has been an attorney but had not been a judge, and so that was the same case with Mr. Bowman, and also with Miss Cantrell.
Oh,
So
that's
they
interesting.
they met the constitutional qualifications, but they had not served as a judge. And I believe that those are trends that we will continue to see, right? Because not everybody wants to be a judge at the trial level. It's a totally different thing than to be at the appellate and at the Supreme Court level, and it requires a different skill set. So I
So,
think that, and had either of those persons one that hadn't had judicial experience, it wouldn't be the first time that we've had somebody on the Court of Appeals that had not been a trial judge before. So I think that's a new trend that's probably here to stay. That
right.
you're gonna those positions don't come up that often. You know, most people stay in them until they retire.
Yeah,
And
I
so
think I
I
re-
think
yeah,
if your desire is to be on the Court of Appeals, sometimes you just have to go when it's open, because it could be 16 more years before it opens again
yeah, they
or
serve
more.
8 years. They say
Yeah.
serve 8 years, just like the trial lawyers. And speaking of judges who are now sitting on the Court of Appeals, at least from this area, well, not really this area, but from an adjacent county, was Judge Jackie Caldwell. I mean, she had no
Right.
judicial experience, got elected to the Court of Appeals. Another woman replacing a man. Just
Oh my goodness.
put
We're
that
gonna have
out
to
there,
talk about this
y'all.
woman thing. Are we gonna have to talk about that?
No, we don't have to talk about
Help
that,
me
but
with
I'm
that,
just saying.
Mr.
But
Price.
no, as they say, as this show ends every week, a change is gonna come, and Now we're gonna stop playing a chain gonna come. We're gonna start playing times are changing. Uh, Not only on the trial level courts now, but all the way up the chain now
Yep.
um, because we're seeing the gender transformation.
Oh,
Um, yeah, the gender transformation. I know I shouldn't say it like that, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. But let's
no,
talk
I
about
thought you were talking about the type of candidate that was running, not necessarily the gender, but the fact that they hadn't been trial judges.
right, right,
Uh,
absolutely that they hadn't been trial judges. And speaking of one, Mackenzie Cantrell, she was a candidate for the Court of Appeals. Um, Her challenger, as you see there, was chief judge of the district court now, Annette Karam. Um,
hmm
Now, this was a nail biter, especially for the candidates. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, it seemed it was a bit closer than the other two appellate level races, and looks like they were separated by what, about 4,000 or so votes. So I would say that what the community is saying is that the fact that they are not trial judges doesn't seem to matter much to them. I know
Right.
other lawyers maybe didn't prefer that, but clearly the community was not, uh, did not adopt that same sentiment.
Yeah,
Because they, you know, there were significant numbers for these individuals with the different kind of experience.
yeah, and truth be told, Mackenzie Cantrell was not new to the political arena. She was a former legislator. Um, or Karen, a former. I guess she was a former Karen. I'm sorry, a former legislator. But that's interesting that you know there are individuals out there who have absolutely no judicial experience, i.e., having set and performed the job of a judge before, and the response from the community in terms of voting uh, was really compelling. I'm sorry, really compelling. So,
Hmm.
and I'm not sure what the community is saying. I mean, it could, that there could be a number of things that we take away from that, and one negative thing could be that the community, the voters are really just not paying attention to the candidates and the candidates' qualifications.
Hmm.
There may
I,
be another
I, I
driving
don't know
force
why
that
that
are as why they're voting. Go ahead.
Mr. Price. I don't know why that comes to mind.
What do you mean
Why
by
does that?
that?
Why do you think that they are not paying attention?
No, 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 no. Well, what I mean is that you would think that somebody with the amount of judicial experience as Judge Eckerly, the amount of judicial experience as Judge Karam, theoretically and in a traditional sense, would almost be a shoe in because if I was applying for a job as a welder and I had never welded before and my opponent had 20 years of welding experience, I would expect that the employer that's doing the interview would probably favor the welder of 20 years over me. And I just make that analogy with a political race, and particularly a race for a judicial seat, when there are individuals who have a lot of judicial experience. That's all.
Yeah, I think that I mentioned it earlier. The voters are not letting other people decide for them who they want to put in these office. I believe that this election cycle was very different for a lot of people because of the number of judges that were on the ballot. I mean, there were literally 43 judges on the ballot. And I know there's always a lot of courthouse talk about what lawyers say and how they feel. And I believe that the one of the takeaways from this cycle was that the community doesn't, uh, was not taking their advice from the lawyers.
Yeah,
They
obviously
they
not.
decided for themselves who they thought should be in those offices, and whether a judge actually requires to have that experience before they get there. Because when I ran in 2014, we didn't have the experience. There's always going to be a time where people have to learn what to do. So I don't know if that's one of those things
No,
where
I don't know.
people
I mean,
require it.
No, my thought was just simply that it just seems to me that, and again, the analogy I gave was that if I don't have any welding experience and he has 20 years of welding experience or she has 20 years of welding experience, I would think that she pretty much would be a shoe-in because of that experience. But obviously the electorate doesn't see it the same way. They go out and
Yeah.
they learn about these candidates. They learn what uh, for instance, how they're like the candidates and what they want to see in a candidate, regardless of the judicial experience and the background, and and decide appropriately. And I think that was a good example of what we've just seen in these, actually, since May, since the primary, pretty much.
Hmm.
But speaking of which, there was also some other races, as you know, there were races in circuit court. There's going to be a lot of new faces in circuit court, and um, we got the opportunity to really see that the face of circuit court is changing. And again, I know you will chuckle when I say this, but not only are the faces changing, the gender is changing a great deal on the circuit court. And listen, for everybody out there listening, that's not significant. It's just an observation. It's just an observation. Used to be a lot of testosterone. Okay, when you walk into circuit court, now as somebody, and I'm quoting somebody earlier, said, "Well, now it's going to be a lot of menopause there." So uh, I know that's a crazy way of putting it, but I'm just repeating what somebody else said. I am not the author of that. But anyway, speaking of circuit court, so these two ladies were vying for Circuit Court Division 9, which is really interesting because, as we know, Judge Brown, uh, sitting now in Division 9 is Judge Jessica Green, who is just going to make a lateral move down the hall, or actually to another floor, I think, down a floor or two to the.
I think it's on the same floor.
You think 6 is on the same floor as 9? Yeah, yeah, maybe so.
It
'Cause I
is.
think the four courts
Yeah.
on the floor.
It's
Okay,
just
so but
down the
anyway,
hall.
but she's. I'm sorry.
It's just down the hall.
Okay, so she's moving down the hall, um, because she got appointed. It was really kind of weird. What I think the governor did, but politics is a bitch, y'all. It really is. But I think he made the right move in appointing Jessica Green to that seat. But interesting enough, Jessica Green had already applied for a vacancy in Division 6, where Olu Stevens elected not to run for reelection for Division 6, and she was unopposed. So she's moving down, and these two candidates took a shot at the seat. Sarah Clay, an attorney, and of course Nicole Compton, attorney. Many of y'all remember Nicole Compton from the child support show that was aired here. She at one point owned a visitation center because she thought the family court really did not provide that type of service, that the visitation type of service that was being provided for domestic violence victims, but not for the general population. So, Judge, talk to us about this particular race. I thought it was a very interesting race. I think there were a lot of people who were shocked that Attorney Compton came out of the primary because, if she was doing a lot of campaigning prior to the primary, it was not as visible as others. But she came out of the primary with a very, very impressive showing and made a very impressive showing for this seat in Division 9. But your thoughts on these two candidates and what litigators should expect from the new judge?
Well, I think both of the candidates were obviously qualified and just had two different backgrounds. I think Judge-elect Clay has been a litigator most of her career, and I know she's a panel attorney in Division 6, so she's very much accustomed to the trial work and the rigors of trial work. And then, of course, Ms. Compton had a different background. I think she's done some litigation, mainly civil litigation, and also had done a lot of family work. So I think that's another trend that you're going to continue to see. First trend we identified is you're going to have people applying for appellate level cases. I mean, appellate level judicial seats and not having served as a trial judge. And then I also feel like you're going to just have a whole different um, people with different backgrounds, different legal backgrounds will be applying for these open seats. And you'll be able to see the diversity. I mean, with different backgrounds comes diversity in thinking and how to problem solve. And all of that is good for the bench. All of that is good.
Yeah, interesting. Another race that I think a lot of people were interested in, um, and somebody had to win and somebody had to lose. This was one of those races, but it's in circuit court. It was another one of the open seats, and it's this Division 5 race that basically pitted Attorney Tracy Davis. Um, Against Judge Mary Shaw. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Judge Mary Shaw had served at least 2 terms on the circuit court. She may have been unopposed the last time. I can't remember the history there. But this was very, very interesting because this was the only race that invoked the implications from the Breonna Taylor case. And, again, I would say this, because I believe this. I guess it was a wonderful strategy, if you will, for Attorney Davis. But obviously, the truth is that when you have police officers lying to you, and then later are indicted, uh, it is truly unfair, I believe, for the public to hold Judge Shaw accountable for anything to do with the Breonna Taylor case. But apparently, that's what they did, and they elected to, give Attorney Tracy Davis a shot, which is really interesting because Attorney Davis has never served on the bench. I know she's ran a few times. And quite candidly, I'm looking for great things from Attorney Davis. I thought it was very, very bold and very ingenuous. Not really ingenuous, but very genius like, to find what she thought would really pluck the feathers of some of the electorate to actually come out and vote. Um, and she did, and apparently it was successful. Now, I'm not going to say that that was the only reason that individuals voted for Attorney Davis, but obviously I believe that that played a part.
Yeah, I think that was another case again of the community saying, we don't care what the lawyers say, we don't care what the papers say, we're going to make our own decision on that particular race. And I would, having talked to lots of people while I was campaigning myself, and just trying to get a feel of what was on the hearts and minds of the community, this was probably the most asked about race that folks asked questions about. It was the most publicized of the open positions as well. So I think that probably you know allowed the community to see who both of these candidates were, and maybe that caused them to go out and do some research and see how they wanted to do it. I mean, it was not. Let me look at the numbers again. Let me see for 5.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean this was a pretty close race. I mean, I think it's not even separated by about 2,100 votes, something like that.
uh huh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
but
I mean, and that was well. Was there any race that was closer than this margin?
yeah, I'm not sure if there was any race that was closer than that particular margin, and I would agree with you that it was probably one of the most watched races and one of the most popular races. Uh, I would be remiss if I didn't just say this about that particular race, that I thought it was really, really uh, a low ball for the Courier Journal, which obviously nobody watches the Courier Journal because they were not. Uh, fazed by the article. I never read the article because I don't read the Courier Journal. I just think it's a I can't say it because you're my guest on today. But anyway, but I don't read the Courier Journal. But I understand that there was an article that was intended to be very dissatisfying for candidate Davis, and apparently it had no impact whatsoever because the public said, "The hell with cutting low like you did, the Courier Journal. We're still going to go out and pick who we believe is probably the best candidate for the job."
Yeah, I think that they did make their own decision, and I think that we're going to probably see more of that in all of the election cycles because uh, most of them, especially the partisan races, have just become so toxic and polarizing that people just don't want that in the nonpartisan races. They don't want that kind of negativity in the judicial races or even the school board races. I mean, I saw though all of those incumbents were reelected, resoundingly, but there had been a lot of negativity positioned at them, and I just think when that happens, it pretty much backfires. It has not paid off other than to make that person's name more prominent in your mind, but it doesn't necessarily uh, cause people to believe what's in the ad. I know as I was, and I didn't see the article for this race, uh, or the one that I think it was written by Mr. Wolfson. I didn't see the article either. But just before, like every morning for the last 2 weeks of the elections, and especially so that last weekend before, I mean, all you saw was commercials, and they were always trying to tell you something new about this person and why you shouldn't be voting for them and all of that. And I just think the public has grown weary of that, and they really don't want that negativity. And when they hear the negativity, they just tune it out. They just
Yeah, I
tune it
think
out.
it's yeah. I mean, I think it's old stuff. I mean, there are some ways that some things that used to work many years ago that will sway the electorate at the last minute, and that was one. But it just didn't work this time, man. I think with social media and with access to so much information so quickly and so easily, many people had already made up their minds as to what they were going to do. So trying these old tactics to persuade them, even though it's my opinion that Andy Wolfson at the Courier Journal has this fetish for black elected officials, and that seems to be all he writes about. I know you can't comment on that, Judge Brown, but I will. So in any case, but interesting in Division 5. But also there were a number of other circuit court races, and I'm going to try to run through as many of these as I possibly can. Division 10, a legacy here, if we can, if we can say that. Tish Morris is won that race, and Tish Morris is going to be moving forward, and the new judge in Division 10. This is where Judge Bissick, who's going to the Kentucky Supreme Court, was sitting. And now Tish Morris comes in. Of course, these were um, two admirable, if I can say that, candidates. Doris Lee Gilbert, wealth of litigation experience. Tish Morris with the wealth of litigation experience and trial experience. And I say that as a trial attorney because that's what we like to see on the bench. Those are the judges we like to see on the bench. Judges who have had the opportunity to try cases, understand the rules of evidence, and not from a book, but just from practice. So your thoughts on this race?
Yeah, again, two qualified attorneys with very different backgrounds now litigation in their backgrounds, but they were litigating in different areas. And the race looked a little closer for a long while, and then you see Judge-elect Morris just pulling away towards the end of the evening. And again, I just if because I've not practiced with I've practiced with Miss not with her, but Miss Gilbert has practiced before me. I have not ever had Miss Morris to come before me, but if they are, as you say, both top notch litigators, then I feel like the circuit bar will be very pleased.
Very pleased. I would tell you. This next group, Ebert Hagley and Judge Julie Kalin. Um, Very interesting. Judge Kalin, as we know, gave up her seat, took a chance, took a wild chance, gave up her seat in district court, and that was one of the vacancies that some of the district court judges have run for. Gave up her seat to take a shot at circuit court, and apparently the gamble played off. I mean, I'm sorry, paid off because now she's going to be the new circuit court judge in Division Four come January. Anything about this race strike you as really competitive?
Well, I think it was outside of the Supreme Court race. This was the race with the second largest margin of victory.
Interesting.
About 40,000 votes ahead. My understanding is that people thought it would be a lot closer. So not sure why it was not, but they made a decision. The community made a decision, and again, lawyers are always talking about what they think. I'm just telling you, the community does not care what we think or why we think a race ought to be close, or the bar polls, and uh, uh, I believe that was the case even with Division 5. The person that the LBA bar poll indicated was like highly qualified. I think in both of these races
Yeah.
turned out not to be the Citizens for Better Judges. I kind of think they endorsed both of the persons who were not successful
Yeah, that's
uh,
interesting.
in
Yeah.
in this race. So
Yeah.
I'm just telling you, lawyers ain't always getting it right. And so far, I don't think you've named a race yet where we had picked the right person.
Right.
Where
Right.
lawyers as a whole,
As a
if you
whole.
look at the bar polls, and you would have a totally different result, because there were so many other people that were looked at and thought to be more qualified, but that's not who the community was looking for. So I
Right.
don't know. I think maybe our standards need to be a little more broader. Maybe we need to change our questions, because clearly we're not in sync in terms of what we think is important, and what the community believes is important.
Right. And this race here, Division 7, this is the seat that Audra Eckerly would be vacating. Judge Eckerly would be vacating and moving on up, taking her promotion to the court, to the Kentucky Court of Appeals. Melissa Bellows and Ted Schaus. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn when I say that a lot of people thought that Ted Schaus was the front runner in this one. I'm not sure what the primary numbers were in comparison to whether Ted got a great deal of those numbers or whether he fell victim to the gender challenge, but during the primary. But obviously, Melissa Bellows, the electorate thought she was the better candidate, um, if I can say that, or maybe it's these other dynamics that are out here. Uh, as to why individuals get elected to the circuit court bench. But this is an interesting addition to the circuit court bench.
Yes, it is. I'm trying to look up I want to look at the primary results to see if it had anything to do. Let me see.
Yeah, I think I saw commercials for both of them, and I thought Ted Schaus's commercials were very compelling, if you will. They were very I mean, his commercials were very informative, rather entertaining, and very very personal. I like that. I mean, I'm a dog lover. My daughter's a veterinarian, so I mean, I love the fact that his commercial opened with him walking the dog, and I just really really thought that. Uh, that he will come out victorious in this one. I
Not
really
because
did.
he had, not because he had the dog in his commercial,
No, well, no,
Mister.
there's a lot of pet
Right.
lovers, and
Oh,
there's a lot of people who were probably moved and voted for Ted Schaus because of the fact that he thought it was important enough to put his pet in the commercial. However, not taking any away, I'm sorry, not taking anything away from Melissa Bellows, but at the end of the day, the electric decided that she was the better candidate, and um, you know,
by
she's
a
new
very
to
wide
circuit court.
margin.
I'm sorry.
I said it was a little bit over 18,000 votes, which is a significant amount on this when you look at the other results, I don't know if that's the largest margin or one of the larger margins, but that's many of these were a lot closer. They were less than 10,000, less than 5,000 votes, but this one seems pretty definitive. And Ms. Bellows had yes, she does have a litigation background. I think she's primarily been bankruptcy attorney, uh, corporate bankruptcy attorney, and then Mr. Schaus had significant litigation experience, but primarily criminal defense.
Right.
So I don't know if the community is saying we need someone with a business litigation background. Don't know. I know we didn't get a lot of I didn't hear a lot of people asking about this particular race, but I think a lot of people were basically shocked when they looked at the ballot and saw that it was 2 pages of judges, and I mean maybe there was 8 elected offices, 8 partisan offices, and then the rest of it was the 43 judges and the 2 amendments. And I saw someone post that they weren't sure whether they were voting or taking an ACT test. It was so many judges on there, and so many people said, "I don't know any of these folks.
Right.
I don't know any of these folks."
And what I say to the people who say that, I'm going to be critical of those people because the information is there. I would just say the information. If you didn't know who was running, I'm not going to blame that on the candidates because I think most of the candidates put themselves out there either personally by going, shaking hands and kissing babies, or they had media out there. All of them had most of them has extensive social media. Um, so I always hear people say, well, can you tell me who's running, who is this, who's? I understand when they call us and say, who should I vote for? To me, that's a
Mhm.
suggestion that I know who's running. I just don't know who to vote for. But then to say, at the witching hour, I don't know any of these people who are running for judge. Well, what does that mean? You don't know them. You've never heard their names. You've never seen any of their literature out there. I just think that as voters, we are not as engaged when it comes to the political system and voting as we are when it comes to, going out to the nightclub or going to the Kentucky Derby. That's just my 2 cents. But this, go ahead.
I was going to say, it looks like though we had the highest voter turnout for a midterm since 1990. So we were at 50% voter turnout. That's better than the primary because I feel like the primary was like 21% or 17%, some low number. Uh, but now we had 50%, and then young voters too had the highest number of voter turnout since 2018.
Yeah.
So about 27% of all the voters were under the age of 30.
Huh.
So that's better. That's good.
Very interesting. I'm going to run through a lot of these other ones real quick, but let's just run through them. Garvey and Bowles, both names that we're familiar with, but the face with this particular Bowles is not that familiar. Garvey came out victorious in that particular race. Again, I thought the numbers on those races for a sitting judge were, I mean, her opponent were very high. Um, for someone who had no judicial experience, and we hadn't seen around the courthouse. I would say that those people who really knew Bowles were the ones that met her out on the campaign trail, knew her as a teacher, or was in law school with her, because I don't think there was a whole lot of practice that she had. But she made a pretty good run in this particular race. But Judge Garvey was victorious.
Right, right. Um, the trend just continues, Mr. Price.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
electorate is willing to consider people with very different backgrounds as long as they meet the minimal constitutional requirements. It looks like they're willing to consider them.
and I suspect that is a good thing. But look at this race. This race was won by Yvette De La Guardia. Um, give me that back, guys. Can I get that back? You always do this to me. Let's see if we can get that back. Uh,
Yeah, I'm looking at those results. Let's see.
yeah, Yvette De La Guardia and Laura Holman. Laura Holman, for many of you who didn't know,
About 6,000 votes,
they,
6,700.
You said 6,700 was the difference.
About
Yeah. So,
93.
and your vet Gordia is new to the courthouse, but she's been around for a little bit longer than you might think. She looks a lot younger than she is, but she's the first Latino elected to the bench. You remember Danny Alvarez, who won his primary and then unfortunately suffered a cardiac arrest shortly
Right.
thereafter. So he didn't get a chance to, make it to the general. He would have been the first Latino, but now she's the first Latino elected. And it's welcome diversity to the bench, right?
Yes.
Additional diversity, I should say.
Yes. Um, you mean both of these both of these candidates were newcomers to the community, Miss De La Guardia and Miss Holman.
Yeah.
Um,
How about this race here? Jessica Stone, prosecutor Jessica Stone, who I had a trial today, not with Jessica, but I was in court and I saw Jessica there, and I thought she would take some time off. She ran a really really good race to be new. Jessica joined the county attorney's office after I had left, a few years after I had left. And Karen Faulkner, of course, we know has been around a while. Uh, I think Karen presented herself in her commercials as very, very well. And I like the fact that Karen was persistent in looking, trying to get on the bench. She has a load of criminal defense experience and a lot of other experience. And I don't know. I think she's a good fit for district court. Jessica Stone would have been a good fit for district court, but as you said earlier, Judge Brown, the people did their homework and they decided that Karen Faulkner was a better candidate for their vote.
well, I mean, again, this was one of the closer races, and both of the candidates have significant litigation experience, just from different perspectives. Um, so it wasn't an equal race, but there wasn't a lot of votes separating them.
Yeah,
About
and I
35,
and I and
about 3,600.
yeah, and honestly, I thought that was I was shocked by that. I really thought that because Karen had put her name out there, that her name would be the most recognizable. Uh, but apparently, Jessica Stone did her homework and showed a pretty good a showing. This race here, I will tell you that I was disappointed in this race. Not because I didn't want Megan McDonald to win, but I was disappointed because I know how hard Shannon Farver worked. I mean, that woman worked her ass off. And if anybody deserved it, I thought she deserved to win just because of the amount of work. We talked about Judge Eckerly's work and all the hard work and the ground. How she was boots on the ground everywhere. I mean, Shannon Farver probably doubled that. And I was really sad that she didn't get it only because of the amount of effort that she put out on the campaign trail. And she's an outstanding person, has a very experienced for the job. Megan McDonald is someone new. She's from a judicial family. So again, I'll give everybody my 2 cents on this. I like judges with trial experience, with litigation experience, because I think that again, if I'm applying for a welder job, I want to be supervised by a welder. If I'm going in the courtroom to be judged, I'd rather be judged by somebody who has done this thing that I'm doing, that is trying cases or litigating in front of a court, as opposed to be doing administrative thing. I don't know a lot about Megan McDonald's background, um, but again, we have history, right? We have history with some judges who came on barely 2 years, and I'm not saying Megan McDonald has only had 2 years. I think she had more time than that as a member of the bar, but we have history, and some of those judges have turned out to be extremely outstanding. But this was an interesting race. But I was saddened, not that. Nothing against Megan McDonald. I was just saddened because I know Farver, and I thought Farver worked her ass off. I really did.
Yeah, this is two very different types of experience. Uh, Ms. Farver had significant years of trial experience, administrative law experience, has her own practice, and then I think Ms. McDonald, she had a firm, or was a partner at a firm with herself and another individual, and then had some mediation experience. So,
Interesting.
mhm.
Yeah, very, very, very interesting. This next race, uh, Judge Tanisha Ann Hickerson was the incumbent in that race. As you can see there, Judge Brown, and her candidate, I'm sorry, her opponent was Caitlin Smith Dean. That's not showing up very well, but interesting. I didn't know anything about Miss Dean. I never heard of her before. Maybe I've seen her once or twice. She may or may not know me as my years as a prosecutor. But again, this is one of those races, and I'll say this because this is what we do on Conscious Fever. We talk about these things. I'm always troubled when African American judges are mostly challenged, other than non-African American judges. So it was happy to see Tanisha and Hickerson, the Judge Hickerson, pulled this one out. Again, because I really didn't see a lot of legwork, a lot of media, a lot of here I am to the public out there from Miss Dean, and maybe I was just looking in the wrong places or expecting to see it in the wrong places. But obviously, Judge Hickerson, with 4 years experience, to me had the upper hand. Just my 2 cents,
Yeah,
Judge.
it seemed like she was the community's overwhelming favorite. I mean, she won her race by almost 28,000 votes, which is a large margin for this particular cycle. You didn't have I don't Miss Hickerson, or Judge elect Hickerson had significant community ties and uh, community engagement, and that seemed to be a large part of what propelled some people to some of these high, number wins, was their engagement and knowledge of the community.
Yeah. And let's not call her Judge elect. Let's call her Judge re-elect or Judge Hickerson. You called her Judge elect.
I know that's what I've been calling everybody is Judge elect now because all of our terms expire.
Well, I understand that, but they
So
haven't
we have
expired yet. So right now she's Judge, and if you want to say Judge re-elect, I'm just picking a bone with you now,
yeah,
Judge.
I know
Judge
you
Brown.
picking, but that ain't how you say it.
Okay.
I ain't saying that. No
I re-
judge re-elect.
I
Because this will be her
remember.
second term. This will be her second term.
Right, her second term. Interesting enough is that uh, I was talking to my niece, who's one of your sorority sisters, and she was looking at the pictures. I was telling her, I was showing her what the show I did. She was as we were talking about the judges and the judicial races, and she said when she saw Judge Hickerson's face, she said, "Oh, there's Ref." Because my niece is a basketball player in college, a college basketball player, and she remembered, Judge Hickerson from refereeing. I think that wide area of experience that Judge Hickerson has is very, very beneficial, and I think it's a really plus for the public, and for us, just to have all of that diverse background. She's a mother. Um, she is she was a good litigator. She's a mother, good litigator, athlete, former college athlete, I believe, and now she's a sports official. It's good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Very deserving. This next group, Judge Lisa Langford and Justin Brown. This turned out not to be much of a race at all.
Yes, I think this was one of the races that people would ask about, and it really did turn out to be. Let me get to which division is that? Division
This is Division 6, District Court.
6. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this one turned out to be I think the hype was that Justin would do so much better, but at the end of the day, he didn't.
Yeah, that was a large margin of victory for the incumbent, about 34,000.
Wow.
Yep.
But
Now that's it.
Judge.
I'm just like doing this math right here, so I hope I'm not getting it wrong, but yeah, it's 34. Yeah,
Yeah,
about 34,000.
yeah, but and Judge Langford is very, very well liked, very, very well liked on the bench. Now, I was about to compare her to another judge of African American descent, but I'm not going to do that. But in any case, but she's very, very well liked on the bench, um, and was very deserving of that win. This race here was very interesting. Again, because I'm going to get back to my gender comments. Emily Monarch. Emily's middle name is, or the second name that she uses is Corfit. And interesting enough, with a good name, and she's a female, she did not prevail over this male candidate, Anthony Jones. And again, I'm not saying that, your only qualification is a female to run for these positions, but a lot of male attorneys would tell you that. But kudos to Anthony Jones. Kudos to Anthony Jones, because to say, I think it would be an understatement to say that he didn't have an uphill battle just because he was running against a female. Judge Brown, I know you don't like the way I say that, but this is outstanding. Unfortunately, and fortunately, maybe fortunately, maybe unfortunately, he's going to be the only male sitting in district court at the turn of the year.
Yeah, he had a very, his margin of victory was about 5,000 votes, larger than some of the other races where there were two women in the race. So I would say he apparently has cracked the code.
He may have cracked the code, but I would tell you,
He may have cracked the code. I mean, it's clear he cracked the code. Because
yeah,
I don't think there's been a male that has won in a long time at the district court level.
I think you're
In
right.
fact, I think people would say lawyers would tell you I'm not going to do that because if a woman runs against me, I'm probably going to lose. So if people, have that attitude, they won't be a judge-elect like Judge-elect Anthony Jones, because he was like, I'm doing it anyway.
He's doing it anyway, and he's done an outstanding job. And if you know Anthony, Anthony is a super, super nice person, and it's good to see him prevail. I think Emily, I like what she was talking about with Casey's Law and what she was willing to do and take on improving that whole system. But kudos to Anthony Jones, a maverick, and taking on this challenge and being successful. This next race was a no-brainer. This is one of the cases where I'm going to actually just give my opinion. I have no idea why Christian Garrison ran. He must have had a beef with Judge Nicholson. But Judge Nicholson, this is one of the wider margins. This was one of the wider margins that I saw. When we were doing the show last week, we went out looking for web pages.
This would be probably the second largest after Bific, about 67,000 votes. That's a pretty big margin.
Yeah, I don't know why he even did this. I really don't. Maybe when he was a prosecutor, there was some friction there with either her father or her uncle or her. I don't know, but this clearly to me, this was something that I don't advise anybody to do, and it irks me when people do it. They just run against judges just because they have some beef with them. But in any case,
and again, that's consistent with what the community has decided in this cycle, is that we don't really care what the lawyers think or what motivates them. We're still going to pick the person that we think is the best for the seat. So, I mean, it's consistent. It's consistent because the numbers say that it's consistent. I mean, it was overwhelmingly the choice.
Yeah, he was pretty much stomped. This race here was very interesting because I got to know both of these two women. Of course, I used to work with Mary Wolford, outstanding young lady, and I understand that she taught at the University of Louisville's law school, or University of Louisville at one point. I'm not sure which one. But Claudette Patton was just outstanding to be on the campaign trail during the primary when I was in the races. But somebody had to win and somebody had to lose.
Yes.
And I think this started off really tight. I don't know how it ended.
About 27,000.
Was the difference?
27,000.
Was the difference?
27,000.
Is that what Miss Wolford won by?
Well, she had one of them had about 107 and some change, and the other one had 80,000, almost 81,000.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting. Well, I think Judge Wolford, I think Judge-elect Wolford is going to do an outstanding job, and I think Claudette Patton would have done an outstanding job as well. But one of them, both of those, either one of them, actually, when I voted, I put half of mine on Wolford's and I put half of mine on Patton. I was
Oh
surprised that my
Lord.
ballot didn't get rejected because it's just so hard, to choose between one or two.
Yeah.
I was looking forward to practicing before either one of them. Both outstanding people, wonderful, wonderful clients.
Hmm.
Uh-oh. Yeah, I don't
You
know.
know, go to the next one.
I'm sorry.
We did that one.
Yeah, I think that may be either all we had in there, or that's all they want us to talk about tonight. But in any case, well, Judge Brown, we are way over our time, and
Are
it's
we?
some
It
yeah
goes so
we
fast.
yeah it all goes by so fast. It really does. Um, but the interesting thing is that I think that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Well, that was actually 17. So I guess we went through all of them. We it didn't
We
seem
just
like it.
didn't do them in order. Yeah.
Yeah, we
Okay.
just didn't do them in order. So in any case, Judge, I appreciate you joining me tonight, just talking about these races. I thought that I'm looking forward to January 2023. I'm looking forward to being in court and litigating against these new judges. And I just hope judges, this new group of judges, just like some of the judges that we have sitting on the bench now, will just you know have the backbone to make decisions, not worry about the Courier Journal, not worry about a camera or anything in there, but make the right decision, and just really be fair across the board. Leave politics out. Politics have no place in the legal system. Don't you agree, Judge Brown?
With you mean with the judges? Mm.
Especially with judges, with making opinions, and I mean, anyway. Let me just as a side note, I don't know if you saw this commercial, but there was a fella running for the Kentucky Supreme Court. I'm not sure what district he was running in, but it must have overflowed into our TV viewing area because he was running, and his commercial basically said that he was a conservative and he would bring conservative ideas to the Kentucky Supreme Court. I just thought that was a patent violation, a blatant and flagrant violation of the bar rules.
Well, I think that it did come up prior to the election with judicial conduct
Good.
uh, committee, and they did issue a ruling that said that it was a violation of the canon, and then they were sued in federal court to
For what?
stay the enforcement of the ruling until after the election. So I guess it'll be going forward now.
I wonder if he won or
That
lost.
person didn't win. They
Oh,
didn't win.
good.
They lost.
Good, because he was seriously injecting politics into. I mean, we all know that some of us are Democrats and some of us are Republicans and some of us are independents and some of us are something else. But there is no place to insert that when you're running for judicial office. Am I correct,
Right.
Judge
It's
Brown?
not as if you ever ask people that question when they come in, or that people have any reason to speak about their party affiliation.
Yeah, totally inappropriate. Anyway, Judge Brown, listen, thank you for joining me tonight. Um, Tomorrow is Veterans Day. I'm sure you want to take this opportunity to offer a wish for our dear
Absolutely.
veterans.
For our veterans, we thank them for their service and all that they've done to preserve uh, our way of life.
Yeah, I mean, not just our
Absolutely.
way of life, but just allowing us to have this freedom. So, to all the vets, I am a huge supporter of veterans. I have done pro bono work with veterans before, and will continue to do that. I was just floored today because I heard on the news that there was this veteran, used to be a colonel over in one of these wars, and I think in Afghanistan, and he was riding his bike across the country to visit 5 graves, and those were 5 graves of some
I thought I
soldiers.
remember seeing that on the news.
Yeah, soldiers from his company that had got
Uh-huh.
killed. And but in that story they talked about how many he said one of the soldiers from his company, because of the mental illness that he suffered, post traumatic the PTSD, uh, one of his prior members of his company was actually living in a dumpster, you know, and so
Mm.
many had committed suicide, and so many were suffering from mental illness, and the VA was not quick enough to get them the medication. So listen, tomorrow is Veterans Day, and whatever you can do, any of y'all that are out there listening to me, watching me, just do something good for a veteran, and don't be surprised that these individuals that you see standing on the corner begging. Don't be surprised if they are veterans. So anyway, happy Veterans Day to all the veterans, and I wish I had a flag to wave and
Well, just put it outside your house tomorrow.
it's already out
Your
there.
flag. Okay. All
I
right.
have an American flag outside of my house, but not because I'm a veteran, because the American flag, when you have it outside of your house, people don't screw with your house. They don't try to break in because they think you either got a gun or you're crazy. It works. Trust me, it's
I
works.
have no.
Anyway,
I
Judge
have no.
Brown, thank you for joining us tonight. This has been Conscious Fever here on Ice Entertainment Television, Conscious Fever Radio. Can y'all tell her we say thank you? Yeah, thank you. Give her a round of applause for coming and joining us tonight. I'm Carl Price. This is Conscious Fever on Ice Entertainment Television, Conscious Fever Radio. I will see you next week.
You are listening to Conscious Fever, hosted by Carl Price on 97thebeatfm.com.
I was born by the river in a little tent. Like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die. 'Cause I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes, it is. Then I go to my brother. And I say, brother, help me please. But he wind up knocking back down on the knee. There've been times that I thought I couldn't last for long, but now I think I'm able, Father, to carry on. And it's been a long time coming, but I know